Listen, son, to all the sons out there. You can be anything you want to be. Keep God first and love yourself, love your family, and chase your dreams. Welcome to the Listen, Son podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Listen Son podcast. Today is going to be special. It's going to be awesome. So I hope you guys are already tuned in with your listening ears and you soak all this knowledge up. Once again, follow us, email us any questions you might have to listenson414@gmail.com. That's pretty much what my dad and Uncle Rick. They have a lot more knowledge than I do, but they can help with anything you guys got for them. And money and myself, we do the best we can to help you guys out with whatever experiences we have had so far. Today we got a special guest, man. If you on any type of social media platform or you just in the sports world, you know this guy, Coach Jones. Congratulations on the move to Texas Tech. He's an amazing guy. His motto, always play to win, and then the cheetah. Man, the cheetah thing, we got a funny story, Coach Jones and myself, about that. So just listen, man. It's going to be a good one. You're going to learn a lot. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. Coach Jones, welcome.
Man, I really appreciate you guys having me on, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. So the way we always like to start the show, we just want to know, what was your introduction to sports? And when did you know, the second part of that is, when did you know you were good as a player with sports and it could take you out of where you grew up? But then what made you stick with it as far as a coach as well?
Well, I'm from a small town in South Carolina, and I'm truly a country boy. We grew up out in the woods. My grandfather had land, and all of his children lived on the land. So, where we lived, all of my aunts and uncles had a house or a trailer, mobile home in that same area. So, you grew up playing, with your first cousins all day, every day in the summertime. And, sports was just the outlet. We played baseball with whatever we could find, whether it be a tennis ball, a tape ball. And, we pick up a stick, we pick up a leg off a table and just do anything. But, probably my initial attraction to sports was I had an uncle who was really good in track and field. And that was a highlight for us, being able to go to the track meets and watch him run and, just get that feeling. And those are the type of things that you do in the country. And then I think the football itch just kind of came from watching it on television. We grew up in the shadows of Clemson in South Carolina, and, seeing those guys on TV, those guys were role models, because, back then you only had the 3 channels on TV and you look forward to Saturday because, that was an all-day thing, sitting in my dad's lap watching him watch TV. And I think I realized that I was probably good at sports just from the track aspect of it, being little kids and, you're always racing one another. And, we were competitive little kids. So when our other family members, distant family members would bring their children over, it was always a competition. And somehow, man, I just always ended up running barefooted against people. And, I was able to keep up with the older people or whatever. So that's when I kind of knew, that I had a special talent. And my brother's 5 years older than me. And so, he was competing in school, and he was really good. If you go back to our high school right now, my brother and I have I know we have every track sprint record there is. And then you look at football, we've got a vast majority of those as well. So it was a genetic trait for us. And, it was a way out for me. I had a cousin by the name of Tony Rice who played quarterback at Notre Dame. Your dad and your uncle may remember him, last time Notre Dame won the national championship. My cousin was the quarterback. And when you're from a small place like that and you see people doing things that you aspire to do, it gives you something to look forward to. And I can remember just everybody just huddling in town, house to house on Saturdays, watching Notre Dame play USC, Navy, Purdue, and just watching Tony do his thing. And, Tony had won 2 state championships as a high school quarterback. He was a starting quarterback in our high school as a 9th grader. So that gave me incentive for something to do. Being from a small place like that and seeing someone that personally and that you look up to, playing on television and hearing all these prominent sports commentators talking about him, and, you know, seeing him involved in the Heisman race and the national championship run, that just gave me an incentive. And at a young age, I just decided that, you know, I wanted to go to college to play football. And I didn't know where I was going to go or whatever, but, you know, as early as sixth grade, probably, I guess, that was my goal. And so it motivated me from an academic standpoint. It also motivated me from a athletic standpoint to try to achieve those goals.
That sounds good. So you did mention your dad. So you did grow up in a family setting where your dad was present and made an impact in your life.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I tell people all the time, without a doubt, you know, I listen to people talk about role models. I listen to people talk about mentors. And, you know, I would honestly put my father up against anybody in the world, you know, for what he's meant to me and what he's meant to others. You know, I had several buddies growing up that didn't have their present father. And my father was a stand-in for a lot of them. You know, on Friday nights after football games, you know, you walk into my bedroom and it would be 4 bodies in there. And I'm the only one that lived in there because my buddies would come home with me on Fridays. And, you know, my dad would make sure everybody's fed. From the time I was playing any type of travel ball, you know, my dad generally got off work about 3:30. And most of the time when you're playing middle school football or even Little League football, you're playing, you know, 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock or whatever it is. I don't care where we were, my dad was always there. And not only as a source of support, but as a source of instruction as far as what I was doing. But I'd say probably outside of sports, the most impressive thing about my father was just being able to mimic him as a man and being able to watch him as a man. Because when you're young, you don't really realize that you're learning lessons by watching people. But as you get older, you find yourself repeating some of the things that you've heard, and you find yourself mimicking a lot of the things that you've learned. And, you know, even to this day, I'm 46 years of age, and, you know, my father's still my hero. My father is still the guy that I strive on a daily basis to be like. You know, he set the standard really high, you know, for me and my brother. And probably the most impressive thing I'd say about my father is just as a lifelong son of his, watching the way he's treated my mom, you know, from the time we were sitting at the dinner table together when we were little to me going back home from college and just observing them, and to even now, you know, watching my mom and dad go to church. You know, my dad still pulls my mom up to the front of the church and gets out and opens the door for her. You know, so it's just so many things about my father that, you know, I can brag about to the world, but more than anything else, so many things I can reflect on as a son and say, you know, that's the type of man I want to be.
Yeah, I know for sure. Big shout out to my brother who's not here today, Diamante McKinley. We're gonna hold it down for you, but I know that's exactly how we look at our dads, and that's why we created this platform. So to hear you speak about that, and you 46, I'm glad to hear that it never fades away, personally. So, Uncle Rick, I know you wanted to dabble in with something that you wanted to ask him, so I'm gonna give the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome once again, Coach Derek Jones. I like to say, hey, I looked at your resume, I looked at your accomplishments, and I was like, wow, I got to do my homework. Yeah, this wasn't just no ordinary interview when we did some locals, but we had to load the guns on this one. But thank you for taking out time in your day to be on the Listen Some podcast. We're very, very proud of this interview. I'm gonna get right to my question. It's about challenge right away. You as a coach in college, you know, facing the challenge of moving from the ACC at Duke and facing the balance attacks of the Big 12. And when I go there, I'm talking about, you know, you're a defensive back coach, and at the Big 12, they like to throw the ball. And with your resume and your experience and your success, and now I know you're coming in and you're losing 2 seniors. I think it's Douglas Coleman and Desmond Smith. But I know you have plenty of talent left there also with Adrian Fry, Alex Hagan, Adam Beck, Thomas Leggett, and just to name a few. But going to that conference, how do you prepare? And with this academic pandemic going on, how did you prepare to get ready for that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I feel like in life, we have to prepare ourselves for any type of adversity long before it gets to us. And, I've always patterned myself, even as a kid, to be able to try to deal with anything that comes my way. And one of the things that I try to instill in all the young men that I coach is, life gonna deal you a lot of cards and they're gonna be turned over. And when you turn them over, you have no idea, what those cards are gonna be, but you got to play the hand that you have. And for me, you said the key word, the challenge in coming to Texas Tech was one of the things that intrigued me, of being able to come here and take a pass defense that has kind of been, in the doormat of the conference and try to completely turn that around. And that's one of the things I think that drives me individually, just being able to come in and take the same people, the same talent level, same athletic ability, but give them a confidence and a mentality to be able to fulfill their potential. Naturally, I didn't know much about any of these guys before I took the job, but they're Division I football players. And, they're there for a reason. And, upon getting a chance to meet them, I got excited because there was so much to bring to the table that had nothing to do with playing football. I think the biggest thing when you coach collegiate football is you have to teach the young man and make them understand that you have to excel at the things off the field before you can try to excel at the things on the field. And it's habits, it's discipline, it's time management, and it's all the things that make you better than a person of equal talent. And these are the things that the pandemic has allowed me to work on. A lot of people look at the pandemic as a negative. Again, I go back to what we talked about prior to the show. You don't ever worry about the things you can't control. And the pandemic is here. None of us have a cure for it. We don't have a vaccination. So we have to deal with the situation that we're in. And for me, it's allowed me to close the gap, in my opinion, on a lot of my competitors, because I'm getting the chance to know my players. I'm getting the chance to learn a lot of their strengths and weaknesses, physically, mentally, and I'm getting a chance to mold them in the mentality that I want them to have before we get into the season. So, it's been a real benefit to me to be able to use these Zoom meetings, these one-on-one FaceTimes, and just time I wouldn't have had things been normal to do, to get prepared to play. And I was explaining to a couple of the kids the other day, we don't know when we're going to get to play football. But one thing we do know is that we're going to get to play again at some point in time. I know at some point in time, regardless of what happens with this pandemic, I'm going to get to coach the game of football again. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being a coach. Part of being a coach is teaching these young men how to be men, how to deal with adversity, how to handle pressure, and everything that entails being a good football player. So for me, it's a benefit. The pandemic is here. I'm taking full advantage of it to strengthen my guys in all the ways that I may not have the time to strengthen them if we were on a normal situation. And hopefully that carries over when we get a chance to get back on the field.
Well said. I think you got an advantage coming in too, because the Big 12 conference, they throw the ball 90% of the time. You're a defensive back coach, so you could play that right into your hands. I can see that success coming right away. Plus, like I said, with your resume and what you do, you pretty much say, hey, this is the conference I want to be in. Because what was the SEC? Those are running back conferences. But I think you got the ball in your court right now.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting knowing I'm coming to a place where, we're going to be the focus area, in the secondary. Okay. And I love the aspect of everybody, with the negative talk about what they haven't been. That's one of the driving points. I came from a program at Duke University where when we got there in 2008, they had won 10 games combined in 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I think three or four of the seasons they won no games at all. And nobody thought it was possible for us to even win games, much less compete for a conference championship. They hadn't been to a bowl game, I think, in 17 years, and they hadn't won a bowl game in 53 years. And, we accomplished all those feats, and we set records and set a standard there that hopefully they never fall back below. And so being able to come here to Texas Tech, where I think you can get good football players, they've got a really, really good tradition, and it's a respectful place. It's been well received in recruiting. So to be able to come in here as a defensive back coach and give these guys this confidence that they need, and to be able to try to instill a cheetah mentality of, you know, you guys are going to have to come get us. And I mean, that's just fun to me. That's what drives me. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, one more question I have for you, Coach. And being a family man, a father, and being deep rooted, and I'm in Milwaukee, and you were deep rooted in what Virginia, Duke is, I take it junior,
North Carolina.
Duke, North Carolina. Okay, I'm sorry. How do you prepare? You know, and you left somewhere you've been for 12 years. And you know that can happen either longer or shorter, or you like so you had other moves prior to that. It's gotta. I just want to know, how do you do it when you know, like, I'm gonna be here for a while. I'm not gonna leave, and then all of a sudden other opportunities come, and either better opportunities. It depends on how you look at it, and you prepare to leave, uproot, and go to your next phase or next level in life.
Well, fortunately for me, man, my career path has taught me a lot about making decisions now that I'm older in the profession. You know, when I was young, I worked at Murray State University for 5 years. And then the very next year, I went to Middle Tennessee State, and we were fired. I landed on my feet at the University of Tulsa in Oklahoma, and we had a really good year. And my boss got the head coaching job at Louisville, and was only able to take 3 assistants off of our staff with him. So I was looking for employment again. I landed on my feet at the University of Memphis, and I was there for a year. And that's when I joined David Cutcliffe at Duke University. But what that taught me at an early age is how to deal with a lot of different things that could happen in the coaching profession. And naturally, when you're young, you know, you're looking at finances, you're looking at logos, you're looking at conferences that you want to play in. But for me, I was able to grow and mature at a methodical pace in the profession. And once I got to Duke University and we started to have some success, for me, there were a lot of other things about being at Duke University that were beneficial to me. Being from South Carolina, 3 hours away, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my oldest daughter, her children were all 3 hours away from me. So there were a lot of things that I was able to enjoy and take part in, being able to recruit the state of South Carolina, that you couldn't put a price tag on me for me. And, you know, I really believe that, you know, once you get in coaching, you have to have criteria of what you're looking for. You know, if you're just chasing a dollar bill, if you're just chasing a logo, if you're just chasing a conference, you know, you're going to be all over the place. Okay. And for me, I knew exactly what I wanted. So when other job opportunities came my way, I knew my worth. I knew my value. And although people may have been wanting to pay me more money, they were not helping me to advance my career. And I think that's where you have to be when you get to a certain age and point in this profession. You have to know where you're headed and where you're trying to get to long term as opposed to short term. Because if you bounce around in my position in particular, and you just take a bunch of cornerback jobs, they may pay you more, but how does that ever put you in a situation to where you become a coordinator, you become an assistant head coach or an associate head coach? So sometimes you have to sacrifice what looked good to everybody else in order to get to where you know you're headed to go. And the only person in the world that knows how capable you are is you. And you've got to believe that. And you've got to believe that where you are, you can prove that to other people. And that was just my mindset. And for me, I knew that, you know, I was in a good place at Duke. I was working for, you know, a legendary coach there and learning something different every day. So I knew in order for me to leave, it had to have been an opportunity that helped me to advance, not only as a football coach, but as a man from a career standpoint. You know, I'm 46 years old. So the last thing I need to be doing right now is bouncing around taking cornerback jobs if I have aspirations of becoming something more in this profession. And a lot of people don't look at it like that. A lot of people just look at, man, how could you turn down that job? Well, at the end of the day, that job may have paid me well, but that head coach wasn't looking to do anything with me other than get me to recruit and coach those guys at that position. So you have to be smart about decisions that you make. And, you know, being married and having a family, you have to make those type decisions. You know, the benefit for me here is I was able to work with my head coach now, Matt Wells, at the University of Tulsa, and the co-defensive coordinator, Keith Patterson. I was able to work with both of those guys. And we really became good friends, and we continued our friendships throughout our careers. And our wives know each other. You know, they've been involved. So it wasn't just a transition of me taking a job because it became available. There were a lot of things that you don't see on the internet that went into this decision. You know, we had a family atmosphere at Duke. And because I was able to come back and reunite with some friends of mine and reunite my wife with some friends of hers, we've got a family atmosphere here. So although it's a long way away from where I was, the transition has been relatively smooth.
Okay. Well, thank you, Coach, for a well-spoken breakdown. I had to ask that question because I know you move around. I'm looking at your resume and where you've been and where you coach. And you 46 years old. That's a lot of time. When did you start coaching at 16? Like, man, let me add. I'm doing some math on here. Like 12 years here, 10 years here. Blah, 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 blah. Man, he's only 46, boy. So you got some time. So, hey, congratulations and good luck on. I'll be watching the Big 12 this year. I'm a big college fan anyway, football and all sports. So I'll be checking out Texas Tech for sure this year.
Well, I sure appreciate you, man. Enjoyed it.
All right, thank you.
Uncle Rick, thanks for that. That was good content. I want to go back with you, Coach Jones, because I think what I'm seeing so far, players love a credible coach, a coach that played, at the level that they played, and that they feel like, oh, he actually know what he's talking about. So I know you played at, Ole Miss, right?
Yep,
Ole Miss, a Rebel. And then you did, going from North Carolina, I know probably to Canada was probably different as well. So if you could touch on both of those experiences, I would love to hear.
Yeah, man, it was a little bit different. It was a different dynamic going from South Carolina to Mississippi first and foremost. It's crazy. My college decision. Things were different back then from a recruiting standpoint. There was no internet. There were no cell phones, so it was the phone call you got once a week, and the people came by the school, and everybody took their official visits, and you made a decision for the most part. In January before you signed. In February. And for me, I just really, when I got the opportunity to go to the University of Mississippi, I just thought it was a chance for me to go to Mississippi on a visit. I had never been to Mississippi, and I was an adventurous kid. And, in my mind, I thought I had an idea of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But when I went to Ole Miss, I really enjoyed myself. And I had always been intrigued by the SEC conference in itself. And strangely, man, the visit I took to the University of Mississippi was the only visit I took during the middle of the week. And I think that's what sold me, because every other visit I went on was on a weekend. There were other people around. All the food was good. Everybody was patting you on your back every step you took. And it was just cosmetic, and you knew it was cosmetic. Whereas when I went down to the University of Mississippi, on a random Wednesday, I think it was, you get there, you go out to dinner with the coaches, and they just dump you off with the players. And, you're in the dormitory and you're talking to them. And those were the things that I enjoyed, because I left there feeling like I had a bond, with some of those guys, because I was able to see how life is every day and how they live. And that's something that I didn't get a chance to experience on Friday nights and Saturdays on the other recruiting trips. And it just seemed like a good fit for me, but I enjoyed it, just being able to, live in a different part of the country, see a different landscape, meet people with different backgrounds. It was education for me. And, those guys I met at the University of Mississippi are, some of my lifelong best friends now. And then upon finishing college, just bouncing around and toying with the professional realms, Canada's a long way away from anything that I'd ever been associated with. And South Carolina and Mississippi both are in the South. And to be honest with you, I think just my Southern upbringing and my Southern mentality is probably the reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now. Because once I got up to Canada and realized that I was a long way away from everything, and just being smart enough back then to know that, I could play in that league for 8 to 10 years, but I would be 30 years of age trying to get into a professional career. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My mindset was law school. But, it's kind of hard to be 30 years of age with a wife and kids and saying that you're going to go to law school. So I knew that I needed to make a decision to become a professional in something other than football. And had I been making more money, or had I not been in Canada, I probably would have continued to live that dream out. But, you know, for me, it was just a smart, educated decision to, you know, hang up the cleats and try to do something different. And I'm grateful for that. And, you know, the fact that Canada was cold and I don't like that. There was nothing about that I wanted to be a part of. I was okay letting that aspect of it go. And, you know, the timing of everything was perfect because right about the time I decided I wasn't going to return to Canada, I think I got a call from the Nashville Cats of the Arena Football League. They needed a cornerback. They had lost a guy, and the head coach of the Nashville Cats was the brother of the chancellor at the University of Mississippi. So they was like, you know, pencil this guy in. And I went and played maybe the last 7 or 8 games with the Nashville Cats, and it was fun. Again, just like Canada was fun, but at the end of the day, you know that's not something that you need to try to do if you're looking to be a professional. So, you know, for me, it was just timing and the dynamics. And a lot of things in life you learn what you don't want to be a part of, you know, by your experiences. And I'm more of a Southern guy. All my jobs, knock on wood, have been in the South, and I kind of like sweating and humidity.
That was good to know. I like that. That was good information. And I like that. So Dad, go ahead. I know you want to jump in.
Yeah, Coach Derek Jones, I thank you for being on the set today, and we really appreciate it. Rick and I, we used to coach part-time. We had jobs, you know, we coached our sons, we coached other players. And I want to know how you deal with now with social media. You know, how do you keep the young men from, you know, a lot of distraction? You know, young men are so easy to kind of, you know, get upset or get distracted from the ultimate goal.
You know, I think the best thing that you have to do in a situation as a coach is you have to be transparent, because I believe people respond to and respect transparency more than they do instruction. And the thing about me is I tell kids all the time, you guys have a lot of elements that we didn't have when we were in school, when we were young, but life hasn't changed. The way you think, the things you go through, the things you approach with, they're things that my father was approached with. They're things that I was approached with. Nothing under the sun is new other than the devices and the gadgets that y'all have. But
Right.
what you guys do have, you guys have more elements to be exposed than we did because of social media and because of the media itself, and just because of the emphasis that's on college football. You know, college football in itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and people are concerned with your every move as a child. You know, you're 18, 19 years of age, and you're expected to act, carry, and conduct yourself like you're a 40-year-old man. And we all know, having been teenagers and having been young adults, that that's not the case. But I think, you know, just being able to explain to young men that, yes, I've experienced what you've experienced. And I tell my guys on a regular basis, I like to repeat myself a lot, because I think when you repeat yourself, you know, people will start to repeat you. And I tell my guys all the time, I'm not perfect. And I give them examples of why I'm not perfect. I mean, I was a father as a high school senior, and I went to college with a baby, and I let them know that. And, you know, my teaching in that is understanding and making them understand how hard that is, not only on me, but how hard that is on a child, you know, to have a father that's a long way away, and, you know, they're communicating over the telephone. So I try to teach them the importance of protecting themselves and making smart decisions. And, you know, I talk to them about everything that they're doing in college, on the party scene, about dealing with young ladies, and everything that is not in the playbook for being a coach. You know, I think the playbook for being a coach is written up from an X's and O's standpoint. But when you're in our position as college coaches, you know, you're the second dad, but sometimes you're the first dad. And, you know, as fathers, you know, you guys are handing the batons off to us in college to say, okay, I've gotten my son to this point. I'm giving him to you for 4 or 5 years to be able to get him to that point to where he's ready for society. And I take that serious. You know, I'm very passionate about that aspect of it, because I think that's the one thing that I know I'm a professional at. You know, a lot of people can question my ability to coach defensive backs. You know, we may play a game and it may just not go well, and the media may eat me alive because my secondary got torched. But nobody's ever going to question my ability to be able to mold, mentor, be transparent, and be honest with young men. You know, I'm a very straightforward coach because I believe in life. You know, if you sugarcoat things, you give people room to speculate about what you actually mean. And life doesn't sugarcoat. You know, I like to tell people how things are, whether it hurts their feelings or not. And I try to test my guys in a lot of ways and teach them lessons while I have them in my grasp, because a bad attitude can get you fired in the real world. And when you get fired in the real world because you want to mouth off back to your boss man because he said something to you in front of your peers, you've now lost a 6-figure job and you've got a wife and 2 kids at home. So I try to do those things to these young men while they're sitting in front of me, and I try to correct them and make them understand why they can't do these things in life. And these are the things that we never get credit for. These are the things that, you know, you don't see when people talk on ESPN, but these are the most important aspects of our jobs. You know, in reality, man, we only promised to coach 12 games, you know, in a college season. That's really a short amount of time for the amount of time that you're responsible for these young men. So let's say you don't make any bowl games or you just playing on a lower level. Okay, I've got you for 24 games for 4 years. That's not a whole lot in 365 day a year. But at the end of the day, those lessons that come out of those 365 days, those are going to be the things they remember when they're 30, 40, 50, and even 60. And those are going to be the things that they're remembering when they're sitting in a board meeting one day and they want to say something that they shouldn't say. Or those are going to be the things that when they're sitting at the dinner table with their families, they remember you taught them. Or when they're going on a job interview and you've talked to them about not biting their knuckles or not twisting their hair, and they don't do it. And that enables them to be able to get that job. So that's what I'm passionate about. You know, those things right there that stepping outside the lines of what it says to be a coach. And, you know, when I go on job interviews, they never ask me about these things because most people that are interviewing you don't even know that you're going to do these things. But for me to be able to look in the mirror at myself and say that I'm satisfied with me as a coach, that I'm doing my part, I have to excel at those things.
Right, right. Another question. For these young, I got some local young men here, and they are passionate about coaching one day. So I have them talk to Mike Jr. also, but advice that I can give them, far as I noticed you said, don't always chase the dollar, you know, find out what your passion is. Could you explain more detail what I can pass on to these young men?
Yes, definitely. You know, I think to say that you want to be a coach, you have to love coaching. And you have to love coaching despite what your paycheck says. And I seriously mean that. You know, everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to have financial security. But if you're chasing, you know, every situation or every job that comes about that's going to pay you a little bit of money more than what you're making, you're never going to be as good as you can be at what you're doing. I think when you're passionate about something, you have things about what you do that drive you that have nothing to do with how much you're making or where you're living or anything else. It has to be because you believe that you're making a difference in the life of someone else. And I think, you know, these young men need to understand that aspect of it. You know, coaching is bigger than just putting your picture on the internet, you know, in a hat with a whistle. Coaching is bigger than just meeting somebody and introducing yourself and saying, I coach here, I coach there. Coaching is a all day, everyday job. And your mind never stops spinning about how you can help people. You know, coaching is you talking to a young man that wants to drop out of school. Coaching is you being the only father figure that a young man has ever had. Coaching is you talking to a young man that's found out his girlfriend back home is pregnant. Coaching is you talking to a young man that parents are getting divorced. There's a lot of different things that goes into this profession. And you know what? You can never predict the different things that are going to happen or the different things that are going to come. So you have to be passionate about dealing with all of these things. I mean, you can be a guy that knows the game of football, and you can be a guy that knows how to call plays. You can be a guy that knows how to coach a position, but coaching is much bigger than just doing those things. If you're going to be a coach, if you're adamant about being a coach, you have to be all in about being a coach in every aspect. And you have to be willing to call yourself coach regardless of what you make. You have to be willing to call yourself coach whether somebody thought you wasn't good enough and they get rid of you. You still a coach, and you have to believe in yourself. You know, calling yourself a coach means that a lot of people that have no idea how to do what you do are going to be in positions to have opinions on what you do. And people listen to them, whether they're beat writers, whether they're radio people, whether they're television people. There's a whole lot of people who never stepped in your shoes can quickly say to other people that you're not good at what you do, and it gives them that perception. You got to be strong-minded enough to know I'm good at this, and I believe in what I'm doing. And you know what? Sometimes you may not get long enough to prove it, but that don't mean that you stop being a coach. You put yourself in position to find another job, and regardless of what happens throughout your career, how many times you're fired, how many championships you win, whatever the level of it is, at the end of the day, you want to look back and say, you know what? I know each and every year, each and every week, each and every month, each and every day that I did this, I made a difference in someone's life.
Right, right. Well, I want to congratulate you and wish you all the success. And like Rick said, we're college. We watch a lot of football, so we'll be watching you.
Man, I sure appreciate it, man. We want all the fans we can get.
Uncle Rick and Pops, if y'all got jump in at any more point of this, go ahead. But I also think it's critical to have, and I know you could attest to this, Coach Jones, to have your family. You know, your family has to be behind you too, with the coaching career as well as what I've been seeing so far. So I do want to back up though. You said some people might question if you're a good defensive backs coach. You mean to tell us Alabama wasn't playing rock, paper, scissors when they was playing you guys? I know those receivers.
No, we didn't give them a chance to play rock, paper,
Okay.
scissors against us, man. We had a pretty good plan against them, and I had a good group of guys, man. I had a good group of guys that were confident in what they were doing, and we played a high level of man-free coverage, which didn't enable them. And the thing we went into that game against Alabama saying was we're not going to give them the explosive plays. And I think they were probably a little bit shocked that we got up in their face and pressed them, but now, anytime you get up in a receiver's face, you make the quarterback and the receiver have to be perfect. You know, when you're playing people as good as they are, the more room you give them, the more opportunity you give them. And the thing I knew about the Alabama receivers from breaking them down and watching them, they were all exceptional once they got the ball in their hand. So you know what? Most people are scared of the deep ball. Most people are scared of getting beat. But those guys can catch a 1-yard pass and take it 80. So you know what? Take away the 1-yard pass by getting up there. So well, we were able to get up there. We had a pretty good plan, and, you know, we didn't come out victorious naturally against those guys. But I will say in my 24 years of coaching, that's the best receiving corps I've ever seen in one place. And, you know, they always say there's no small victories in defeat, but I was very proud of my young men for the way they went out and played. And truth be known, not many other people played them that well all season. So,
yes, sir. I also want to go back because I believe you have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
No sons, 1 grandson. Am I correct?
1 grandson, yep.
Okay. Congratulations as well. I know Uncle Rick and my dad are in that club with the grandbabies. So I know.
No doubt. They life changing, man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but my question is, are you tougher? You know, you don't have to really go long on this if it's not a question that really applies. But are you tougher on your guys in your room who, because you raised daughters, about how they conduct themselves with young women?
You know, I wouldn't say that I'm tougher on them, but I am to my young men in my room how my father was to me. You know, I go back to the lessons that I learned from him, and I know those lessons stick with me. And I know that he hasn't talked to me about those things. He hasn't sat down and chastised me about those things since I was a teenager. So you have a very, very small amount of time to instill things that are going to last and affect these young men for the rest of their life. And so, you know, I always try to pattern myself after him, you know, in teaching. And again, I go back to just making them understand, you know, you're not promised anything in life. You're not promised second chances. You know, one of the things in my book, probably my favorite quote of mine is everything you do in life is an interview because you never know who's watching or what they're looking for. And I try to instill all the stuff that you see me put on social media, all the snippets that you guys see, you know, me posting small characters. That's me all day, every day with those guys. Because again, I go back to what I told your dad. I'm passionate about making a difference in these young men's life. You know, for me, I can't control whether or not I'm a Hall of Fame coach, whether I'm a national championship coach. I can't control, what accolades I might win. But I am in control of how many baby pictures and wedding invitations I get, because then I know I really made a difference. And when I sit back in my rocking chair when this coaching thing is all over with for me, that's what I want to be able to reflect upon. Those are the conversations I want to be able to have with my guys. Had a phone conversation earlier today for about an hour with one of my former players who's actually a coach down at the University of San Antonio. And we didn't talk anything about when I coached him. Everything was about what's going on in his life and, him and his 3 kids and his wife and things like that. And that's when, you've touched somebody. And that's what it's all about. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm hard on those guys, but what I am is I'm consistent with those guys and making them be consistent, because life is about consistency. Life is about making good decisions. Life is about making wise decisions. And I realize at that age, there's just a lot of things you don't know. But I also realize at that age and in that position that they're in, there's a lot of things that you think you're invincible from. And, one of the things I try to tell my players all the time is football is a great sport, but football will use you up until it has no more use for you. Your job is to get out of the football experience what's going to help you for the rest of your life. People will enable you in college. People will let you get away with things. People will give you things, whatever it may be. But when you step out into the real world and you don't have a jersey and a helmet on anymore, it's up to you. And if you're still thinking that people are not going to hold you accountable, if you're still thinking that people are going to enable you or give you things, you're madly confused. So I try to make these men understand you're getting these things because you're doing this, but you're not going to always be doing this. And I think those are very, very essential lessons for these guys to learn at that age. And, the thing about coaching is when you get one to the point to where he understands, you have to start in on another one. So again, you're constantly repeating yourself all the time. And I go back to your dad, Mike Bond Sr. That's the thing you got to make these guys understand. You are going to have to do the same things over and over and over and over again. So if you're a person that gets bored, coaching is probably not the place for you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So my dad asked a great question about the social media piece, because a lot of these young men miss out on a lot of opportunities because they one post away or one picture away or whatever from the next opportunity. But I feel like you're a great example for not only players but coaches to follow about how you use social media. And your book, Always Play to Win. So do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because I feel like that's a great resource for young people.
Yeah, just talking about the book first, I never set out to write a book. I never envisioned myself as being an author. And to be honest with you, I'm not the type of person that could sit down at a computer and type a book. It didn't happen like that. It's crazy. People just look at you and think that you're just some guy that sits down and writes. But, what I started to do on Facebook back in 2008 is I just started to put up something that I thought somebody could use, just a quote. And I've always been able to put things into words. And, ironically, both of my parents are ministers. So a lot of this stuff has just been ingrained in me for all my life. And hearing my mom's one-liners and, just seeing the look on my dad's face and, teaching you lessons from things that he said or whatever, it just became natural to me. And after several years, one of my high school classmates suggested that I write a book. And, being stubborn, for one, I was quickly to say, no, I'm not going to write a book, because coaching is a very time-consuming profession. And when you have free time, the last thing you want to do is devote time to something that you don't have to do, and then trying to balance family and everything else. I just didn't see time to write book. But, ignorance is an amazing thing, because what she made me understand was that I didn't have to do anything. All I needed to do was to give her the permission to put the information together. And so after asking me a second time, I gave her the permission along the guidelines of as long as this doesn't cost me time. And that's how the book was born, Always Play to Win. And it's just a collection of quotes that I had put up on Facebook, because at that point in time, Facebook was the one area of social media that you were able to communicate with high school coaches, recruits, and parents on. Twitter hadn't come into existence at that point in time, and MySpace was kind of going out of style at that point in time. So, and there was no IG, so it was all Facebook. And then social media kind of transitioned to Twitter. And I was ignorant about Twitter for probably a couple of years before I actually got on it, because I'm kind of a creature of habit. and I kind of like to stay in my box. And so my graduate assistant at the time educated me on the importance of Twitter, the significance of it, and he basically explained to me that parents and coaches may be on Facebook, coach, but no kids are on Facebook much no more. So you need to transition. So he made me a Twitter page. And so what I did was I took the same idea I had on Facebook. Facebook is more family oriented. It's more people my age group. And Facebook is more generated toward cousins, friends, classmates, whereas Twitter is more so professionalism for me. It's recruits, it's colleagues, it's coaches. So my message changed a little bit, but it still had the same meaning behind it. So whereas I may put up a quote on Facebook trying to motivate somebody how to get over a death or how to get past something, you know, my messages on Twitter became making young men understand the importance of paying attention in class, of having good habits, how they dress, carry, and conduct themselves. And it just picked up steam. And, you know, over time, you know, it just grew and grew and grew. And, you know, the more you hear people talk to you and tell you how they're helping you, the more you feel obligated. And my mom told me something a long time ago, guys, that I've always listened to. And it's funny because when she told me, I had no idea what she's talking about. But my mother told me many years ago that all pastors aren't in the pulpit because all people who need to hear God's word and get God's direction are not in the church. And I didn't know what she was talking about at that point in time. But the more I think about it, the more I look at, you know, my ability to be able to minister through my profession. And ministering isn't always about scripture. Minister isn't always about God's word. Sometimes ministering is just about doing the right thing. Or sometimes ministering is about using your ability to be able to educate others. So after a while, man, I just took it as a personal responsibility. You know, I have people, if I'm on vacation, I don't put up my Twitter, people be like, you okay? Something wrong with it. I'm like, I'm fine, man. I'm in Jamaica. Yeah. But, you know, it's just an obligation. And it really takes me a small amount of time in the morning to be able to reach a lot of people. And that's the thing that social media does. And I just, again, go back to, I think the most important thing you can be in life is an example. You know, you can tell people a lot of things. You can instruct people on a lot of things. But people pay more attention to what they see you do, how they see you act, than they do what they hear you say. And for me, having a platform to be able to show people how to carry and conduct themselves on social media platforms and be able to put verbiage out there to make them understand is, for me, an avenue just to be able to help people. That's coaching in itself. But at the same time, it's educating, you know, someone like you, Mike Jr., to be able to say, okay, this can help me because it's helped me from a professional standpoint. I had no idea when I started putting things up on Twitter, it was going to lead to me being able to reach kids in Oregon, reach kids in California, just by putting something up. People run into me all the time and they be like, man, you wear Twitter out, you on there all the time. No, I'm not. I'm not a computer guy. I'm not really a social media guy. I get up in the morning, I put up what I need to put up, and I'm gone, you know, for the rest of the day. But because people are retweeting it, because people are, you know, spreading the material, the word spreads out. So it's marketing for me from a professional standpoint. But more than anything, man, I try to put out educational information. And I can't coach but so many guys. I'm only going to be able to recruit so many guys. But if I can help young men to do the right thing, to put themselves in position to be coached by somebody else, then I feel like I'm doing my job. If I can educate a young coach on how to use his social media to help him advance professionally, I'm doing my job. And for me, you know, I'm a witness of it works because I've probably been offered 5 or 6 different jobs just because of my presence on social media. I'm talking about these coaches don't even know who I am. They just know they see my face on social media all the time and they see these kids retweet me. So it generates an interest and it comes to conversations or whatever. So now you've got a professional opportunity just by somebody picking up their phone and seeing your face every day. So there's a lot of positives that can come out of it. And I try to be a positive example at the same time, educating people on the negatives that can come out of it. As you said earlier, you know, you can post one wrong thing. You can like one wrong thing. You can retweet one wrong thing. And people associate that with your character. And that could possibly cost you opportunities. So again, I try to use social media to say those exact things to people so they don't make those mistakes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We almost there, so we got two more topics, and then we could
Mhm.
2 to 3, and then we could wrap it up. Um, you talked a lot about faith, Uncle Rick. I know he's in a church. My dad is. I was raised. I know how I was raised, and I was definitely raised with a foundation of God being there in my life. Um, how do you incorporate that in your room, Coach? Because I remember we were on the 2 to 3 weeks ago. We were on that call, with the servant leadership that Miss Chelsea is doing, a great platform that she's putting together. And how do you use faith in your room?
I go back to what I just said. I think the best thing you can be is an example, to people. And one of the things you have to be careful about, when you're in a position is forcing religion upon anybody. And I never try to do that. But what I'm going to be an example of what I believe in. And I think when you're an example of what you believe in, I truly feel like I could have 5 different guys in my room of 5 different religions, but we'd all have the same purpose. And really what it comes down to, regardless of what you believe in, it's about treating people right. It's about being honest. It's about being fair. When you look at the characteristics of somebody that's a Christian, that's a Muslim, that's a Buddhist or whatever, that doesn't mean that they're not good people. And I think when you carry and conduct yourself in a way that you're a good person, that you're a good teammate, that you're a good leader, then you can easily incorporate that aspect of it. And, I open up the opportunity for anybody to let me know if there's something that they're uncomfortable with, because we're family. And I think that's the one thing that allows you to be able to be who you are when you make your room a family atmosphere. I've got guys of different races in my room. I've got guys from different states, different backgrounds. But when we family, we're family. And when we sit down together and we talk about things, we talk about things. But I think when people understand that you generally have their best interests at heart, nobody is going to be opposed to the religious beliefs that you have, because you have the right to prove to anybody whether or not you have their best interests at heart. And that's about the person that you are and how you treat them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good message right there. And then, like you said, you don't know how many years you got left. Uncle Rick alluded to it, man. You didn't put in so much time that it's kind of interesting to still see. You still a young guy in the game, that you're at right now. But one thing about change, and you definitely making that change, is sometimes you don't get the changes that you're making. You know that you're laying the foundation for it to be placed in society. So, what is a message to guys like myself, Keelan, that we talked to, and Marcus, that we've talked to, that you've talked to with myself? What are some changes that you want to see us make to continue the torch of what you built on?
I think as time passes, there's going to be more avenues. Social media wasn't in play when I was your age, whereas it is now. So I think you just take the lessons and learn from how not only myself, but other coaches have used resources to be able to help make the profession and what we do better. I think that's as broad as I can give it to you. Be compassionate about who you are. Be a person that, just like I've done with you and your buddies over the last couple of weeks, man, take the time to pour into people, because you always got to remember where you came from, where you were. That's one of the things about me. I always, like, the first conversation you had, you was like, I saw you and your wife getting ready to go. I know you was busy. I'm never that busy, to be able to talk to somebody. I mean, I like to talk. I may be in a hurry at some point in time, but if you give me your phone number, if I give you mine, you call me or text me, at some point in time, I'm going to get back with you, because I value the importance of that. And I think, understanding humility, I got that again, from both of my parents, just being a humble person. I don't care what you've accomplished. I don't care where you're headed, where you are. Being a humble person rubs off on people. And I think the thing that I would advise you to do, and I would want you to do, is to be a contagious person. That's the best advice I can give you. Be a contagious person, because when you're a contagious person and you're doing things right, guess what? You're making other people better all the time, man. And that's what I try to be, whether I'm talking, whether I'm speaking, whether I'm doing a podcast, whether I'm social media, man. I'm just trying to be a contagious person. The thing I take pride in is, man, you're not going to see me have a bad day. because I believe very firmly, if I got a day, it's not a bad day. There may be some bad things happening that day, but I'm not going to have a bad day because somebody didn't have the opportunity I had to be able to live that day out. And, you know, I believe that you always can find a positive and a negative. I've had a lot of bad things happen to me in life, but you know what? I've had a lot of good. So I always try to find that balance. You know, you look at the pandemic right now, a lot of people are depressed about what's going on, losing jobs. You lost your job, but you still got life. I can always give you something quick to come back when you tell me something bad happened, man. You know, even in death, you know what, they died, but I got the ability to be able to know them for the time that I did. You know, and death is a very, very painful thing, probably the most painful thing that happens to us. But think about the benefits that came out of having relationships with somebody that you're hurting for. And you never want to see that happen, but you best understand at some point in time, that's going to be you in that situation. So you want to know that you left a mark on somebody that says, okay, he's gone now, but he left me in position to where I'm going to always remember and carry something that he said to me, even if it's something as simple as taking time to say hello to me, man. And I don't think you can ever get to the point to where you per se call yourself a leader, but at the same time want to have celebrity status. There's no celebrity in being a leader. You know, I'll take the time to go to a high school and see a bunch of little kids out there, and I'll go play with them and talk to them just because I'm passionate about what I do and who I am. And I do realize more than anybody else that, you know, I'm not in this position because of who I am. I'm not in this position because I'm that much better than nobody else. I'm in this position because God has allowed me to be in this position. So I stay humble in that regard.
And that's the reason we're doing this. You know, Uncle Rick, my dad, yourself, you guys can all live probably just through this one episode. You know, like you just said, you know, that's the legacy that you can pass on, even in after, you know, God takes us away from this earth. So I'm glad about that. I'm glad you touched on that. And yeah, you know, if it wasn't for my Uncle Rick or my dad, I probably would have left Nashville feeling like, man, that coach, he didn't like me or something like that. But like my dad told me, like Uncle Rick always tell me, man, just keep going. And I'm glad we were able to connect again because as you can see, this is a knowledgeable coach that, you know, a lot of young cats can just learn a lot from. So Dad, I thank you for always telling me, man, don't get discouraged. Just keep going. And Uncle Rick, I thank you too for pushing me and money to keep going after our
You're welcome, young man.
Yeah, and you got to understand, Mike, the importance of persistence in a situation like that, because the national convention is that one time in our careers we're all together. You're seeing old friends. My wife is seeing old friends. And man, when I tell you, there's always something to do. The older you get in this profession, the more directions you're going to get pulled in. And it's crazy because the night you saw me, my wife and I had dinner reservations downtown with Brett Pry, who's the defensive coordinator at Penn State, James Franklin, who's the head coach, and a bunch of those guys who I had prior relationships with from other jobs. So we're trying to go catch an Uber, get downtown, and all this. So I'm running. Well, when we left our room, we had plenty of time. You caught me at the door. Imagine how many people stopped me from the time I left out of my room until I got to that door. Yes, you know, you think 35, 40 minutes is enough to get downstairs. It's not at the convention. And because I'm trying to be nice to everybody and stop and talk and shake hands, 5 seconds here, you move 3 steps, there's another 5-minute conversation. So by the time I got to you, I was almost in a full sprint, man, trying to get out that door. Yes, so you just always got to look at it like that. You just got to think, okay, I'm meeting these people, I'm seeing these people. But that's why I always tell people, always double back when you can get one-on-ones. Yes, because in a convention setting, in a clinic setting, on the road, people always have agendas. You know, you want to be able to get a person in a position to where you can talk to them when nothing else is going on. And the other thing I always tell people, don't be the person to call on people or lean on people when you want something, you know, because when you want something, everybody wants something. Be the person that says hello just like you've done on a regular basis. Be the person to say, man, how you and your family doing? So I'm definitely not going to not respond to you now because I see that your purpose is a little bit different. You know, if the only time you ever text me if you're a high school coach is when you want me to recruit your players or offer your players so it gets some attention, man, it's 30 of y'all in my inbox. You know what I'm saying? I'm on vacation, man. I ain't evaluating no film.
Right.
That's just kind of how it goes, man. But, you know, you do a good job, man. And like I said, I can see a lot of myself in you, man. Just that consistency and just that pureness and genuineness. You know, the thing I always say to everybody, man, one thing all people can identify is sincerity. And when you're a sincere spirit, man, when you're a genuine person, good things gonna happen for you. You know, when you're a person that's always got an agenda, when you're a person that's got a timeline of when you want things to happen, when they should happen, and when you think, you're gonna be miserable, man. You know, I can't sit here and say, man, I want to be a head coach by the time I'm 50, I'm 46. I'm gonna be watching my watch, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, I'm here to take whatever comes my way. If I sit back and I never become a head coach, you know what? Man, I'm dang proud I got a chance to be a coach. No regrets.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you what, Uncle Rick and Dad, though, I'm gonna let you jump in. He was clean in that cheetah jacket, though.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah. Coach Jones, he called me. He said, "Oh man," he was, I hate to bust him out like that, but he said, "I want to talk to you." I said, "Listen, man, you're a good guy. You're a good dude. Good, like you say, good spirit. I taught you well. We taught you well. So if it's meant for you to talk to Coach Jones, God will present that time again. You know what I mean? And you can see now where we at. You know.
No doubt.
He presented it on a servant leadership call, so you could tell it was definitely God, because I didn't know Coach Jones was going to be on that call. I was just trying to grow in my faith, and the rest is history. So
yeah, that is, man. And like I said, you got to think, at a convention, you're catching guys when they're being themselves. You're catching guys when they're just being, they back to their 24-year-old GA days with the guy that shared the office with them, and their wives are trying to see each other. And you're catching guys that are partying at night. Some guys may avoid you because they don't want you to see them in a certain situation. That's the other thing you got to think about. Why do you think? Think about this. How often do you see head coaches hanging around in the lobbies at conventions? You don't. They're human. They hang in their rooms. Because everybody knows them by being a head coach. Everybody knows them they got to carry and conduct themselves a certain way. Okay. So all of a sudden, if they've had a good time with the guy that GA'd with them 20 years ago, and you see them in the lobby and you come up and talk, and they looking at you like, oh my gosh. So most of those guys just stay to themselves.
Yes, sir.
Or you see them rushing out, or somebody, a lot of them always had a little guy behind them trying to push them in the back to get them away from people. But it's not because, that they're not wanting to talk to people. A lot of them times they're just trying to protect their identity, They're just having a little bit of fun, enjoying themselves, letting their hair down, so to speak. But they realize they've always got to be professional. And all of a sudden, some guy comes up to them and catches them face to face. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want this guy to see me like this. So they may veer off somewhere. That's not because they don't want to talk to you. Most of the time, they just don't want them to see you in an unprofessional light. So,
yes, sir.
But that particular night right there, my wife was actually mad at me because we had stopped like 15 times. Yeah. And that's why you saw me running out that door with that cheetah jacket, because we were supposed to have been downtown by then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the funny part about that story, though, we actually get downtown, we get out of the Uber, we get to the restaurant, and we the first ones there. So, I actually could have stopped and talked to you.
Oh, man. That's so funny. Yes.
Everybody was late.
Yep. They probably had 40 more people stopping them too. So
yeah, man, it was just like everybody on the same page.
Yeah. So money's not here, but we're gonna do our best to keep the thing going that Uncle Rick that his son has going for us. It's the start bench cut before we finish up the show with you doing the listen segment, Coach Jones. And basically what it is, we're gonna start us. Money said, make sure you do safeties for Coach Jones now, because he knows. So we're doing all safeties. Pops and Uncle Rick, you could join in too. So the 4 we got. So you can start 2 safeties. You can bench 1 safety to bring in, if your starter is tired or hurt or whatever, you got to cut 1. This guy just can't be on the team. All right. So the names are Ronnie Lott, Steve Atwater, Troy Polamalu, and Ed Reed. So which 2 are you starting? Which one are you benching? And which one you cutting?
I'm starting Ronnie Lott and Ed Reed, hands down.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to come off the bench with Troy Polamalu. And as much as I love Steve Atwater, I'm going to have to cut Steve Atwater.
Okay. All right. Good. Pops, you want to go?
Yeah, I hate I had to come after Coach Jones
I know
because
I should have had him go last.
yeah,
Hey, I
you
was
should have.
praying.
You should have had him go last.
I
But
should have.
it's ironic, and I know everyone said I should be in coaching, but that's why I passed it on to you, son. But he took my picks exactly, and Ed Reed and Lott, man, they have been two of my favorites, you know. And then I go with Troy, and then cut Steve.
Okay. Uncle Rick.
My. Y'all making it hard for me, man. Well, Ronnie Lott definitely started. I like Atwater. And then Palomaro after that. And y'all know who I got last to cut.
You got to cut Ed Reed, huh?
Don't, Rick, you can't cut Ed Reed, man.
And read the production guy, man.
I had to mix it up, man.
So what's your let's do it like this, Uncle Rick. What's your reason to start Atwater?
Man, I just like what he do, man. You know, I'm into that kind of guy, you know. Hey, and then I'm kind of controversial, so I don't want to just follow the lead. I said, I'm put a little wrench in this plan.
He's an independent guy.
I got you. Well, you know, I don't know if I could really have a say-so in this because I didn't see Ronnie Lott really play, but I do know from YouTube and stuff like that, he was a bad boy. And the toughness he showed with the finger, you know, and playing through that. Steve Atwater, I believe, was on the Broncos when they made me cry when they beat my Packers in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I don't know if that was towards the beginning or end of his career, but I remember 27 out there definitely doing his thing. And, you know, I grew up with Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu. Just Ed Reed being a ball hawk, and he could take it 108 from one end zone to the other. And Troy Polamalu just taking risk because of film recognition or whatever. So I'm sorry we had to make it tough money or not, but you guys handled that with class like you do everything else. So.
Well, the thing about Ronnie Lott, man, we'll never see guys like that again. You know, and I got to give Steve Atwater credit because he was probably a quick number 2 to Ronnie Lott for what they were to the game of football. You know, back then guys played with longevity. Those guys, there wasn't a lot of free agency, so those guys were with the same teams, man. But that was barbaric football back then. You know,
yes,
Steve
sir.
Atwater and Ronnie Lott were known for doing things you can't do no more.
That's right.
If you play like either one of those guys, could you imagine the fines that Ronnie Lott and Steve Atwater would get now?
Man, that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, like a guy like you, Mike, you don't even know football like that. I mean, you know, guys out there just hitting people like it's no tomorrow. I'm talking about hitting people when they don't even have the ball coming across.
Man,
there was no flag on the ground. It was called intimidation, and it was allowed. There was no helmet to helmet. There was no targeting. It's just guys can leave their feet and just take somebody's helmet off, and
take your head off.
You'll never see that again.
Yeah.
And just the leadership that guys like that had, and just the presence they had. You know, Mike Singletary at the linebacker position. You know,
oh boy,
those are dinosaurs now because the game has changed so much. So I'm gonna always pay homage to Ronnie Lott, man, because I know we'll never see another.
Yes, sir. So we thank you for that. Coach Jones is going to deliver the Listen Son segment to wrap up the show. But as you see, man, anytime you're in the presence of guys like my dad, Rick, and Coach Jones, for a guy that's a young guy in my seat, we can learn so much just by listening. So don't always feel like you got to be quick to run your mouth. Sometimes you got to soak up knowledge and you got to grow from it. And definitely these men hold near and dear to my heart and Money's heart already. So we thank you tremendously. Like this episode, follow it, take what you need to, and we'll continue to grow this platform. But Coach Jones, the last minute and a half, 2 minutes for the Listen Son segment is yours.
You know, my son, I'd like to tell you to understand always the most important thing you'll be in life is not a celebrity. It's not a Pro Bowler. It's not a Hall of Famer. If you're blessed enough, it's to be a husband and father. So as you walk the path of life, always understand the man that you are is what you're going to be judged on. And at some point in time in life, you're going to have somebody depending upon you. The things that you do, the things that you say, and the things that you act will follow you in life. So always be conscious of the things that you do, how you act, and the things that you say. Understand that you're not promised second chances in life. You may see other people get second chances, but that doesn't mean that those second chances are going to come to you. Understand that life is not fair. If you expect life to be fair, you're going to often be disappointed. Understand the importance of being able to deal with things that don't go as planned. There is no blueprint for life. The blueprint is about knowing how to deal with adversity and how to handle adversity and move on. And at some point in life, you know, you're going to hold a child that belongs to you. And you're going to want to be able to reflect back upon your experiences and know that you have the wisdom and you have the strength to be able to lead that young person, whether it's a male or a female. You know that as an example to what you should and shouldn't be, goes to other people. People watch you, people observe you, people look at you to know how they should and shouldn't act. And regardless of what you say, regardless of how you come across, people pay way more attention to how they see you act and behave than they do the things that you say. I'd say that regardless of how long you're blessed to live, you want to know that the life of a good man is measured like this. You work your whole life to become successful, and you put yourself into whatever position that you term to be success. And if you're fortunate, you're able to take on a wife and you're able to father children. And understand that for the rest of your life, if you take on a wife and you father children, you're going to be responsible for providing for and taking care of somebody else, whether they're in your household or not. And if you're a good man, you can only hope that when you leave, you've left something behind for them, whether it's financial or whether it's through wisdom.
Thanks once again, my fraternity and sorority of listeners of Listen Son podcast. Please, women and men, please like, subscribe, and share. Continue to support our goals to connect untold special real-life stories.